Hey everyone, this is Austin Shore here with We Write About Music, and today I'm speaking with the new Citizen Kane. He's got a brand new single called Lonely Christmas Lights and a brand new EP called Could Have Been, and I'm super excited to talk to him all about it. First, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your hectic week to be here to talk about great music. How are you doing? What's going on?
I am doing really well, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here and to meet you face to face.
Yes.
Busy week. I decided to have a quick trip to Brazil in between trying to promote the Christmas single and the EP, which was
Sure.
probably not the wisest choice. But yeah, all good. I'm actually hyperactive by nature, so the more things going on, the better usually.
Nice. I fully agree. If I'm out doing something, I feel like I'm not being productive. So it's
Exactly,
So why not release music at the same time? Um, I
100%.
wanna I wanna kick this off by talking about this single. I feel
Hmm.
like year after year we get stuck into the same cycle of listening to the same five boring songs that we've heard for years and years and years. And so when an original comes and it's actually original, that's when I get excited about it. What I like about this song is that it very much takes influence from everything that you've already made, but then still manages to influence with so much classic Christmas style. I want to know how did this one get made? How did you actually begin to start to do this?
This was probably the easiest song I've ever written.
Really?
Yeah, I wrote it in like 20 minutes,
Oh,
and
jeez.
it was really I didn't plan on releasing a Christmas song. I kind of was playing around as a bit of a joke. Oop,
All
sorry,
good.
technical difficulties.
We're
Um,
good.
I was playing around and it kind of like came out of nowhere. Um, After a conversation on the phone with one of my best friends in Switzerland who was going to be alone for Christmas.
Ah,
And as an avid party goer, kind of like we're talking about like just going to like dance Christmas away. So that is how the song idea kind of was born. And, I have to admit, I'm a die-hard Mariah Carey fan. So,
sure.
you know, I am one of those people that plays All I Want for You, All I Want for Christmas is You to death
Yeah.
every year. But, the thing about Christmas songs is they're always very one-sided, right? It's always either about love lost or wanting to find love at Christmas. And you never really get a real song about, like, okay, what else happens in life? People are alone sometimes at Christmas. I think probably most of us have had that where we haven't been able to see our family, or we've come out of a relationship and we're feeling, fragile. And the dance floor music can be that escapism, right? It's like empowering. So I wanted to not make a Christmas song, but it's a song about self-empowerment that it just happens to be set at Christmas.
Nice. I love it. It sounds great. But then it kind of segues into the EP. So, like, in terms of recording sessions, did one happen before the other? Because obviously an EP is going to take longer, but it
Yeah.
sounds equally as vibrant. So, what was the process of making the both of them?
So the EP was already done and planned, and I also had the videos lined up for Could Have Been and Forget the World. Um, and as I said, I had no plans to ever write or record a Christmas song. I posted a little clip on Instagram, and I just got so many messages about the song, and like thank yous basically about writing a relatable Christmas song
Sure.
that I just rush released it. So literally, I wrote it the week before it came out.
Dang. And you put it all
I
together that
recorded the
quick.
video in my little office. I just wrapped myself up in Christmas lights and shut myself in an armchair.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was it. So it was really like spontaneous and last minute.
It sounds easy enough, but did you find that maybe a little more complicated to put this EP together because I know that your production is what I mean. For me, when I listen to your music, the production is what really comes through the best. And I find that sometimes it's like speaking another language, trying to put it together because it's
Yeah.
so technical. What was the actual process of like, okay, I have an idea and a blueprint for this thing. Now I have to make it.
Yeah, so the album was pretty much finished, and I started writing Could Have Been and Forget the World around the same time. Forget the World, I think, was like a couple of days before. My husband was on a business trip, and it was really just speaking from the heart, you know. I just called to say the sun shines brighter when you're here. So it's quite an easy song to write. But I always find that like happy songs are harder to record without sounding super cheesy. So
That is true. That is
yeah,
true.
so I wanted to go less in that kind of 90s R&B housey vibe, which
Yeah.
a lot of the album is, and that is kind of a lot of the music I've done in the past is very electronic, which this is also, but this is quite guitar based. And so I decided to do a full EP of more kind of melancholic songs,
Sure.
to show also, I guess, more of my like intimate songwriting,
Hmm.
which often gets lost in the electronic side of the music. And production wise, I think Could Have Been was super easy. I mean, it just kind of like flowed for me. Forget the World was where I was kind of like in that space of wanting it to be cool and a bit kind of new wave-ish,
Okay.
kind of leaning slightly on that 80s vibe, but to not lose the sincerity at the same time. Um, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to release this as an EP separate from the album. And then when I started posting snippets, it again, it was like one of those things that just like snowballed by itself, which I didn't
Sure.
expect. So I thought, okay, I have to like rearrange the album track listing to fit these on. So we now have a 20 track album coming out in January.
Wow. Jeez. Well, okay, so I want to go back to something you said because it's something that I wanted to bring up about sort of transitioning your sound. I
Hmm.
think, I mean, I would describe you've had a very busy year. Like you've been quite prolific with the amount of releases, and everything has sort of felt like it's been on this path of an evolution and growth. And then you say that you wanted to showcase your songwriting a little bit more, which I agreed because this EP for me was a lot more lyric heavy. Not to say that the production wasn't excellent because it was, but I found that you did a really good job of sort of leading the listener towards listening to what you're saying rather than the sound that you're making.
Yeah.
How do you feel that you've sort of brought yourself down this path of experimentation?
Um, it's funny because I've always had two distinct sides almost. You
Yeah,
know, the producer that wants to create the perfect track and the lyrics come second. And then my more personal, almost diary songwriting. And very few of those songs ever got released. So I have a back catalogue, you know, from
right.
20 years of songwriting of like quite intimate personal moments. And Chasing the Past is one of those songs, which actually did make it on my last album, which was 10 years ago,
Sure.
as the final song. And whenever I performed it live, it was that song that everyone connected with. And also a song that I kind of found very difficult to perform
Yeah.
because the emotion is so raw in that song, and the lyrics really were written like what I'm writing is what was going on, and that was coming out of a 6 year relationship. You know, come lay down beside me, pretend for just a while
Right.
that none of this is happening. It was a poem basically, and
Yeah.
just threw the chorus in there. So the 18 months in vain, it wasn't really 18 months, but it just sounded better,
Sure.
you know?
Can't let everyone into everything that happened.
I know,
I
exactly.
understand. I get that. Um,
But
yeah,
the original track was, I produced it in collaboration with a friend, and it kind of like had a very euphoric vibe, and it like built up from this kind of slow ambient dance track to a kind of euphoric song, but I felt it missed the manicness, and I guess what's
sure.
the most different in this album is that in the past, I would always second guess myself, and maybe I never trusted myself fully as a producer. So on the last album, I produced four songs by myself, and then the other six were co-productions with friends of mine who
Nice.
work in music. Whereas this time, I've kind of written and produced everything from scratch by myself, and maybe it's because I never planned to release any of it that
Sure.
you see a lot more of my personality come through. And also, I guess I'm at an age where I'm just more confident and comfortable in myself
Of
that
course.
I'm kind of rolling with it. And, I kind of threw Endless Summer up just just because it kind of like I kind of posted a teaser again after not posting any music for 8 years,
Sure.
and people reacted so well. I was like, okay, well, let me put an EP together and put it out there, and it's just snowballed. So everything that's happened, none of it was or is planned. So I've kind of been just going with what people are reacting to.
Yeah, and listen, I respect it because you say, as you've grown older, you've become more confident in a way. But I think it's because the more you make music, the more comfortable you are actually making the music. You learn more about the production, you can see the vision clearer in your head into what you
Yeah.
actually want to sound like. I fully understand being an artist and not necessarily being nervous, but just wanting a collaborator to sort of lean on. But if you know
Hmm.
what you're doing, I find that making music can be a very isolated thing where it's like, this is my me time. I'm going to do this thing. And I don't, you're not on a strict schedule. Maybe with a Christmas song, you're on a strict schedule, but with an EP, it can release whenever. So you kind of hone it in and make this thing. And it's like, yeah, it might have taken me 6 months or a year, but it's all me. And I can be proud of that.
100%. And I think it's also going back to not having planned anything
Yeah,
really means that I always started with a concept when I was working on a project. And so the songwriting really was kind of secondary to what the project needed to sound like.
sure.
With this time, I mean, if anyone actually dares to listen to the whole 20 songs,
And they
they'll
should.
see, it is such a, eclectic mix.
Yeah,
And one thing that a friend of mine kind of pointed out was that she said, you can really hear the different sides to your personality,
of course.
because often you kind of get stuck and pigeonholed into doing one thing because you had one song that was popular, and that's just the way the record industry is, which is why
Right.
I've tried to stay independent as an artist. um yeah, it's been refreshing. It's been refreshing, and it's like I'm really excited that songs that I never thought would do well or never planned to kind of like promote have just taken on this whole life.
That's
So
really nice. Well, it's good feedback and sort of like analytics for you because it's like, oh, people like this thing, then I can maybe make more of this thing or at least in that style.
yeah,
But
I'm trusting
yeah,
myself more.
right. But I also want to know because, again, you've had a good amount of releases, and I find that every one has not sounded like the previous one. Sure, I think that you have a specific style, but you always take chances and risks, which I think is so important in being an independent artist. If someone were to come up to you and ask, like, hey, what kind of music are you making? Do you have sort of like an elevator pitch for it's like, oh, I make this?
So I'm starting to like realized that I just need to call myself alternative pop because
Okay.
I used to say indie electronic, but then, a lot of the more indie writers or curators, they always come back saying I'm too commercial. And the commercial writers and playlist curators, they come back and say I'm too indie. So I've kind of like settled for alternative pop.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the the meaning of genres has completely like dissipated. You know what I'm saying? Everything is sort of everything nowadays, and I think that can be attributed to like just the future of where production is. There's no just rock songs or just pop songs. Everything is sort of a mix of everything.
Exactly, and it's beautiful, right? Like,
Yeah,
why do we have to just do one thing? Like, good music is good music, and if it
right.
resonates with people, great. Yeah, so I'm just rolling with the punches.
Right. Well, when you first started out making music, right at the beginning, did you have an idea for the music you wanted to make based on the people that you like listened to, or did you actively want to go in another direction and try something different?
So, so when I first started making music, we're going back like 24 years. I was 18 when
Right.
I released my first EP in Ireland, and so I've also been through all the different kind of recent evolutions of the music industry.
Yeah.
My first EP came out, it was CD.
Yeah.
A lot of people now don't even know what a CD is,
Right.
let alone a cassette. And I still have demos on cassette. I used to have a four-track recorder in my bedroom that I would like record songs since I was like 13 or 14.
It's
I
awesome.
mean, songs that I hope never find the light of day because, you
Hey,
know,
never say never. You might look through your demos one day and say, that was actually a good idea. I'm gonna
well, funnily
modernize it.
enough, Tonight Maybe is one of those songs. So it's not going to be on
Okay.
the album. It's part of the EP. And I wrote that when I was 19, and I literally recorded it with a friend in our bedroom on the four track. And I was listening to a lot of William Orbit kind of at the time. And so we put this like delayed effect on the guitar, and we were trying to replicate that sound, and then a kind of trance drum. And if you kind of like listen to the lyrics, as a 19-year-old, it was kind of quite navel gazing. But
Sure.
when I was revisiting my back catalog, I was like, oh, this actually feels a lot more authentic now. I'm 42. So I rewrote some of the words, and yeah, kind of felt like it fit quite nicely with this EP.
Sure. Well, listen, I've got a couple more questions for you. I find that obviously a lot of people release holiday inspired songs towards the end of the year, and I know that you've got something in the works for January, but what is sort of the goal for 2025?
So in the last year, I've recorded close to 90 songs.
Jeez.
Yeah, after 8 years of being nowhere near a microphone, or I
Yeah.
kind of thought I was done with music, to be honest. And you transition into real life.
Yeah.
Um, and at the beginning of this year, I found myself suffering with a bit of anxiety, which was the first time in my life. Maybe not the first time I'd suffered from it, but the first time I acknowledged it, or I kind of
Sure.
recognized how that takes shape for me. So being creative was my way of kind of curing that anxiety. And I just forgot how much I love making music. So when I say I
That's
never planned for any of this, it was really just therapy, going
that's
in and
amazing.
setting up my old equipment. So, as you said, there's been a lot of releases and there's a lot more on the way.
Awesome.
Um, I, End of January, we're going to release Morpheus, the album. And it's an album of four acts. So there's debauchery, there's devotion, there's discord, and then there's the divine. So it's kind of there's little stories in all of the songs, people can listen to it in sections. You can listen to it the whole way through, but there's a red thread and there's a narrative from beginning to end. So for we live in an attention economy these days.
That is true.
So
But hey, the
you
more
take it,
music that's quality, the better that you can be like, hey, another one and another song. And it's just like people remember your name and they go back.
yeah. So whether people want to listen to a song here or there, or if they decide to kind of try and figure out the story the whole way through, I think it's a good collection of songs, and that's what I wanted to make.
Very cool. And then the last thing I want to know is, you know, I think a lot of people who watch this or listen to this will discover you for the first time. What is something that you'd like to say to them before they click play on either the single or the EP?
Just forget my face, forget about me.
Stop.
Just
Stop.
close your eyes, listen to the song, and listen to the story. I think people will resonate a lot with this EP because, it's just very honest human songwriting that we can all relate to, whether
Yeah.
that is the what ifs, whether it's the nostalgia for something great, or, that kind of like chaotic breakup, that desperation.
Yeah.
I feel like the EP takes you through all of those emotions. So it is in itself a mini journey, which I'm excited for people to listen to.
Nice. That's a great answer. Listen, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. But before we
Um,
wrap up here, I want to plug your music again for you once more. So, for everyone out there who's listening or watching, I'm speaking with the new Citizen Kane. The single is called Lonely Christmas Lights, and the EP is called Could Have Been. We will have the links everywhere so that you can listen and share and follow along. And obviously, stay tuned for literally so much more that's on the way. And
Thank you
truly,
so
man,
much.
I just want to thank you so much for taking the time. It is always nice to speak with people whose music that I actively enjoy. So thank you.
It's amazing to hear that feedback. Yeah, pleasure talking to you. Good luck. Have a great Christmas. Have a great New Year. All the best to you.
Awesome.
And see
Thank you
you
so
soon.
much. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye bye.
Ciao.